Here we are going to be talking about ordering and comparing decimal numbers. Once we have a good understanding of how decimals work, one of the big things that we need to know is which one's bigger than the next one. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to use the example that is in your notes, but I'm not going to write the names of the microorganisms. I'm only going to use their first letters because I don't think it's really important what they're actually called. So I have the first microorganism, which is a tardigrade, and it has a length of 0.15 millimeters. Now, I actually want to pause for a moment on that. When we first started our supplemental learning, you guys were measuring things in millimeters. It was your first sort of section of things that we did, and so think back or take a look at a ruler and remember how big a millimeter is, and think, we're only talking about 0.15 of that. So these are really, really small things. The next one that we have is a euglena, and its measurement is 0.139 millimeters. Then we have a vorticella, and it is 0.11 millimeters. And then we have a paramecium, which is 0.125 millimeters. So we have some very, very small things. So typically we would look at these under a microscope if we wanted to take a look at what these microorganisms looked like. Now, there's lots of different things that we can do to try and order these numbers. Now, some of you might already look at them and go, hey, I think I have a good understanding of how this works. We're going to go over a couple of ways together and sort of talk a little bit about the ways that I like to use and that make the best sense to me personally, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what makes the best sense to you. So please take whichever one of these works best for you and use that one. So the first thing the first version that they use is a place value chart. So we've talked about place value. We have our ones, then we have our decimal. Then there are tenths, hundredths, and thousandths. Oh no. Oh, good. I thought I was going to run out of room there. And so what I can do is I can actually put each of these numbers or translate them into this chart. So in every case, I do not have any ones. So I know that this column is going to be 0 all the way down, but these three columns are all going to change. So the tardigrade has 1/10, so 0 ones, decimal 1/10, 5 hundredths, and there's nothing going on here. So that means that I have 0 thousandths. The next one, the euglena, I have 0, decimal 1/10, 3 hundredths, and 9 thousandths. Then I have the vorticella, which is 1/10, 100th, and 0 thousandths. And the last one is the paramecium, which is 1/10, 2 hundredths, and 5 thousandths. So when I look at this, I can then I start at the left-hand side and I say, does one of these have something that the others don't? And they're all equal here, so that's not going to help me out. Then I'm going to look at my tenths. Well, they all have the same amount of tenths. So they're all the same amount of big in that column. So then I need to move on to hundredths. Well, here I have some different numbers going on. So I'm going to choose the largest number, and that's going to give me my biggest. I like to often think about biggest to smallest. For me, that's the order that makes most sense. Sometimes I'll do it smallest to biggest. Whatever you choose is your choice. If you want to flip-flop, awesome. So my biggest number then is 0.15. Now, you might want to say, hey, I already dealt with that one. That way you don't write it down twice. So then I'm going to look for my next biggest number. And that would be this one here. So I have the Euglena, which has a 3 in the hundredths position. So 0.139 would be the next biggest. Check mark. Then I have a 2 in the hundredths position. So 0.125 is going to be my next biggest. And last but not least is my little Vorticella, who is only 0.11 millimeter long. So that's one way that we can use place value in order to get an idea of which number is bigger or smaller. The way that I like to use, now there are some number lines, you can put them on a number line. It does do that in the notes. Please read through it. But the way that I find personally the most effective is I like to do what we've done in previous sections, where we write all of our decimals with the same number of digits or numbers behind the decimal place. So I'm going to add zeros until that happens. So I need 3. So those two are going to get some zeros. And then what I can do is, first of all, check your ones column. Make sure that they're all the same. That is the first thing you're going to do. But if all those are the same, I'm only going to look at the numbers behind the decimal, and they're going to help show me which one is biggest. So if I look at these and I say, okay, if I was counting the number of chocolate bars that I got, I would want to have 150 over 139, 110, or 225. So this one here is going to be the biggest because that is the number of chocolate bars that I would love to have in my fridge ready to eat. My next biggest one is 139. That would be pretty sweet too. Now maybe you don't like chocolate. Maybe it's candy bars. I don't know. Pick something that you like to eat or just like to have. Maybe it's Pokemon cards. Whatever makes you happy. Next one, 125. That's what we got. That would make me pretty happy as well. And 110 chocolate bars would make me pretty happy, but not as happy as 150. So that one is going to be my smallest number. So those are two of the different ways that I find most productive. If you would like me to go over some of the other ones with the number lines, please let me know. I can add that as an additional video. Otherwise, try out some of the practice questions. If you have any thing that is not sticking or just not clicking quite right, send me a message and we can talk about it and help you out.